In May 1965, the Ford Motor Company issued a death warrant. The subject? A one-of-a-kind, factory-built two-seater prototype known as Shorty. In the world of Detroit automotive giants, prototypes are usually treated like trade secrets. Once their promotional tour is over, they are sent to the hydraulic press to ensure no one ever drives a car that doesn't officially exist. But Shorty was different. While the security teams at Dearborn Steel Tubing were preparing the paperwork for its destruction, the car vanished. It wasn't just stolen, it was entombed. Hidden behind a brick and plywood wall in a rented Detroit loft, it became a ghost for nearly 6 months. Today, we are performing a forensic deep dive into the 1964.5 Shorty Mustang, the only factory fastback two-seater ever built. This is a story of corporate execution, insurance loopholes, and a designer who was willing to risk a federal prison sentence to save his masterpiece from the crusher. To understand why Ford wanted this car dead, you have to understand why they built it. In 1962, Ford was obsessed with the Corvette. They were losing the sports car war. While the Mustang was being developed as a 4-seater family pony car, a small group of designers wanted something leaner. Ford commissioned Dearborn Steel Tubing, DST, the legendary shop responsible for the Ford Thunderbolt, to build a test bed. They hired a freelance genius named Vince Gardner. Gardner's resume was legendary. He had worked on the Cord 810 and under Raymond Loewy at Studebaker. Gardner took chassis number 10, a pre-production pilot plant Mustang that was actually built on a Ford Falcon chassis. He didn't just tweak it, he performed surgery. He cut exactly 16 inches out of the middle of the floor pan. To maintain the car's structural integrity, Gardner abandoned the steel body from the firewall back. He hand-molded a custom fiberglass body with a fastback profile that predated the production fastback by months. He even moved the fuel filler to the trunk lid because the car was so short the standard location was gone. It was a mechanical marvel, but to Ford's accountants, it was a liability they couldn't control. The forensics under the hood of Shorty are even more shocking than the body. In 1964, the biggest engine you could get in a Mustang was a 289, but Shorty was an experimental testbed for Ford engineering. Engineers took an early 260 cubic inch V8 and performed a bored and stroked procedure to bring it up to 302 cubic inches. This was years before the 302 became an American icon. But they didn't stop there. To make sure Shorty could outrun a Corvette, they fitted it with a Holley 3x2 tri-power carburetor setup, a 6-pack configuration that was never intended for a street Mustang. They even used custom Chevrolet pistons during the build because they were the only ones that fit the experimental bore. This car was a Frankenstein of Ford's most aggressive ideas. When it hit the custom car Caravan tour in 1964, the public went wild. People like Bill Snyder, the man who would eventually own it, saw the car in Cleveland and begged Ford to buy one. The answer was always the same: it's a one-off, it's not for sale, and soon it won't exist. May 2nd, 1965. The promotional tour was over. Shorty was sitting in a warehouse at DST waiting for the flatbed that would take it to the scrap yard. Vince Gardner, the man who had laid the fiberglass with his own hands, couldn't let it happen. In the middle of the night, Gardner liberated the car. He didn't take it to a car show or a chop shop. He drove it to a rented loft in a multi-story Detroit warehouse. Using plywood, bricks, and plaster, he literally walled the car into a room. He created a secret chamber that appeared to be part of the building's structure. Ford reported the vehicle stolen. The FBI and local police searched, but the car had vanished. After several weeks, Ford filed a claim with Aetna Life and Casualty. The insurance company paid Ford roughly $10,000 for the total loss of the prototype. At that moment, Shorty ceased to be a Ford. Legally, the car was now the property of Aetna. Gardner had succeeded in saving the car, but he made one fatal mistake. He was a genius designer, but a terrible tenant. He paid the first month's rent and never paid again. 6 months later, the warehouse owner, tired of waiting for rent checks from a man he couldn't find, decided to clear out the unit. When they tore down the temporary plywood wall, they found the candy apple red Mustang, perfectly preserved in its tomb. The police were called, and the VIN 5S08F-100009 immediately flagged it as the stolen Ford prototype, but Ford didn't want it back. They had already taken the insurance money and moved on to the 1966 model year. Under the law, Aetna now held the title. Instead of crushing it, an Aetna executive saw the car and fell in love. He purchased the scrap from his own company, registered it for the road, and drove it as a personal car. For the next 3 years, the most famous missing prototype in Detroit history was being driven to grocery stores and offices. Finally, in December 1968, a tiny classified ad appeared in Hemmings Motor News. Bill Snyder, the man who had seen the car 4 years earlier at a show, saw the ad. He didn't hesitate. He bought the Shorty for $2,500. For nearly 50 years, Bill Snyder kept Shorty. He drove it for 15,000 miles before the original lacquer paint began to crack. In 2012, he finally commissioned a full restoration to return it to its 1964 show Caravan glory. When it debuted at the Amelia Island Concours, it was more than just a car. It was a survivor of a corporate execution. In 2015, the car sold at auction for $378,000. It remains the only 1964.5 fastback two-seater in existence with a factory VIN. It is proof that sometimes the only way to preserve history is to steal it. The Shorty Mustang is a reminder that every car has a paper trail, but only a few have a soul worth stealing. If you found a one-of-one prototype in a warehouse tomorrow, would you call the factory, or would you start buying bricks and plywood? Let me know your choice in the comments below. Help us reach our milestone of 2,000 investigators by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the evidence vault. I'm your host, and I'll see you at the next discovery.